I told him I wasn't ready to date, right before I slept with his brother at a wedding. The worst part, I didn't even know they were related. Let me back up. I met Noah at a friend's housewarming party. He was sweet, soft-spoken, wore tortoiseshell glasses, and had the kind of voice that made you feel like he was genuinely listening. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship that ended in a slow, humiliating death, months of ghosting while living in the same apartment, passive-aggressive breakfasts, and one final, I think we've just grown apart over cold pasta. So when Noah asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime, I smiled and gave him the classic post-breakup line. I'm really flattered, but I'm just not ready to date right now. He nodded respectfully, didn't push, didn't guilt me, just said, no worries, I still hope we run into each other again. And that should have been it. Except it was. Because 2 weeks later, we did run into each other again at the wedding of a mutual friend. He was a groomsman, I was just a guest. And I didn't show up alone. I showed up with my best friend Mel, a clingy dress I'd never had the courage to wear before, and a determination to not think about my ex for once. I was there to drink champagne, cry during vows, and maybe flirt with someone I'd never have to see again. I didn't expect it to be Noah's brother. The reception was chaos in the best way, twinkling lights, way too many people on a dance floor the size of a doormat, and a table full of tiny desserts I kept circling like a predator. That's where I met him. Luca. He looked like trouble, in that confident, leaned-back kind of way. Black suit, no tie, a half-drunk whiskey in his hand, and the kind of jawline that deserved its own LinkedIn profile. Going for the third eclair, he asked. I shrugged, don't judge me, they're small. They're also disappearing. I've been watching you wipe out half the tray. You've been watching me. He smirked, guilty. God help me, I blushed, like a teenager. We talked, then we danced. Then we ended up out on the patio under fairy lights, his jacket draped over my shoulders, my heels dangling from my fingers. And then we kissed. It wasn't a polite, wedding-friendly kiss. It was messy, hot, hands in hair. I've been starving for this kind of kiss. I shouldn't, I whispered at one point, breathless. He just smiled against my mouth. Then don't. We ended up in his hotel room. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't careful. It was impulsive, dizzying, and exactly the kind of escape I'd been pretending I didn't need. In the morning, I slipped out before he woke up, left a note that said thanks for the eclair and a little smiley face like a coward. I didn't even know his last name. Fast forward 2 weeks. I got invited to a low-key brunch gathering. Our mutual friend Mia was moving to Portland, and she wanted to say goodbye to a few close people. I figured I'd swing by for an hour, drink a mimosa, pretend to be emotionally stable, and bounce. Guess who opened the door? Noah. Hey, he said, surprised. Didn't know you were coming. I didn't know this was your place, I said, frozen. He laughed. Yeah, Mia's been crashing with me while packing. Come in, come in. I walked inside, feeling my spine lock into place like I was preparing for war. I thought the worst-case scenario was seeing Noah again and having to politely reject him a second time. Then I walked into the living room and saw Luca on the couch, holding a mug of coffee, wearing a hoodie that said property of the bride's brother. He looked up, and everything in his face shifted. His smile dropped, his eyebrows pulled together. I froze halfway through the doorway. Noah looked between us. Oh, he said slowly, you two know each other. Luca spoke first. You've got to be kidding me. Noah laughed nervously. Wait, what? I turned to Noah, every cell in my body screaming run, but it was too late. Luca stood up. You're the girl who said she wasn't ready to date, he said. Seriously. Noah blinked. Wait, you're the one. And just like that, I realized I didn't sleep with some hot stranger. I slept with Noah's brother. And I had absolutely no idea what the hell to do next. The air in the room turned radioactive. Noah stared at Luca. Luca stared at me. I stared at the exit. If I had a superpower in that moment, it would have been evaporating into thin air. I would have paid real money to turn into steam and float out the nearest window. I didn't know, I said, to no one in particular. Luca scoffed. Right. No, seriously, I said, forcing my voice not to shake. I didn't know you two were related. You didn't notice the same last name, he shot back. I didn't even know your last name. Noah held up both hands like he was trying to press pause on the conversation. Can someone please explain what the hell is going on? Luca didn't hesitate. Your girl here showed up to the wedding, made out with me under twinkle lights, and disappeared from my bed before sunrise. Noah turned slowly toward me, his face unreadable. Is that true? I felt the floor tilt. Yes, but it wasn't like that. He blinked. How else is it supposed to sound? I opened my mouth, closed it again. Because there wasn't a version that didn't make me look like a walking contradiction. I told you I wasn't ready to date, I said quietly. Because I wasn't, or I thought I was. I didn't plan to meet anyone at that wedding. It just happened. Luca scoffed again and headed to the kitchen. I heard him mutter something about bullshit and classic. Noah just stood there, looking at me like I'd peeled off my face and revealed a stranger. I reached out a hand instinctively. Noah. He stepped back. Mia's in the back, he said, his voice flat. If you want to say goodbye, go ahead. And then he turned and walked down the hall. I should have left, I know that. But my legs took me down the hall, past framed photos of the brothers as kids, into the guest room where Mia was folding clothes. Hey, she said brightly. Thanks for coming. Wait, are you okay? I must have looked like a corpse. Not really, I said, sitting on the edge of the bed. She handed me a juice box like I was 5. I took it. Luca's Noah's brother, I said. Her eyebrows lifted. You didn't know? No, I had no idea, and now no one knows about the wedding. She whistled low. Yikes. I didn't mean for any of it to happen. I was trying to be good, to not hurt anyone. Well, she said, flopping down beside me, intentions are cute, but consequences don't really care. I groaned into my hands. Do you want me to kick everyone out? She offered. No, you're leaving for Portland. I won't ruin your goodbye brunch. Mia looked at me for a long moment. Okay, she said softly, but I think you need to ask yourself something. What? She tilted her head. Who did you want to hurt less, your ex, Noah, or yourself? I left without saying goodbye. I couldn't face either of them. I spent the rest of the weekend in what I call emotional quarantine. Bed, comfort food, and the mindless scrolling of strangers' drama so I wouldn't have to face my own. The wedding night played in my head on loop, so did the look on Noah's face. And Luca's voice, your girl here disappeared from my bed. I wasn't anyone's girl. And that was part of the problem. Days passed, then a week. Noah didn't text, neither did Luca. Mia sent a photo of her new apartment, and I stared at it for a long time before replying, looks amazing. Miss you already. Then one night, a notification popped up. Luca, got a minute. My heart dropped. I debated ignoring it. Then I typed, yeah. He replied almost instantly. Meet me at Comet Bar, 8 p.m., if you want to clear the air. I stared at the screen. Then I stared at myself in the mirror. Then I grabbed my coat. Comet Bar was dim, loud, and unpretentious. I spotted him in a corner booth, nursing a beer. He didn't stand up when I approached. Hey, I said. Hey. I slid in across from him, my hands under the table clenched. I wasn't going to message you, he said, but I figured we should talk like adults instead of sulking in group chats. Fair. I was mad, he said, because I felt used. Like I was some rebellion phase for the girl who told my brother she wasn't emotionally available. I winced. But then I realized, he went on, I never asked you anything. Not your story, not your past. Hell, I didn't even ask your last name. So maybe I was using you too, just in a different way. I didn't know what to say. He looked at me, tired but clear-eyed. So, are you in love with Noah? I shook my head. No, I could have been maybe, but I never let it get there. Why? Because I was still figuring myself out, and I didn't want to owe anyone honesty I hadn't earned yet. He sipped his beer. Then quietly, did you feel anything for me? I swallowed hard. Yeah, I did. He looked away, nodded once, and stood up. Then maybe we're both not the villains in this story, just two people with really bad timing. Then he dropped a 20 on the table, looked at me one last time, and walked out. And for the first time since that damn wedding, I didn't feel ashamed. Just sad. I thought that would be the end of it. The conversation with Luca felt final, like the closing credits of a movie where nobody really wins, but at least the music swells and the screen fades to black. But life didn't fade to black, it kept playing, and 2 weeks later, it gave me a sequel I wasn't ready for. It started with a text from Mia. "Hey, are you going to Ryan's birthday party?" Ryan, our mutual friend, the one who'd introduced me to Noah at that first party. I stared at the message like it was a bomb. "I wasn't planning to," I typed back. "Why?" "Because both of them will be there, just giving you a heads up." Them, as in Noah and Luca. Of course. I hadn't seen either of them since Comet Bar, and honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted to. But something in me shifted. I had spent so much of my life avoiding conflict, running from discomfort, hiding behind excuses like I'm not ready or it's complicated. And where had that got me? A string of half-burned bridges, confused goodbyes, and missed chances. So I put on a black dress, pulled my hair into a knot, and showed up. I wasn't there to stir drama. I was there to stop pretending I didn't care. Ryan's place was packed, loud, and lit like a nightclub trying to remember it was a condo. I scanned the room and spotted Mia near the drinks, giving me a thumbs up and a Godspeed look. I saw Noah first. He was by the kitchen, holding a solo cup, laughing at something someone said. His head tilted slightly when he saw me, not in shock, not in anger, just acknowledgement. I nodded, he nodded back. Then I saw Luca. He was leaning against the balcony door, talking to someone in a leather jacket. He looked exactly the same, smirk and all, but when he saw me, something softened in his face. He excused himself and walked over. "You came," he said. "I did. Wasn't sure you would." Neither was I. We stood there for a second in silence, the music thumping around us. "Wanna talk?" he asked. I nodded. We stepped out onto the balcony. It was quiet, except for the low hum of traffic below and the distant sounds of people laughing behind the glass. "I've been thinking," I said, arms crossed against the chill, "about everything." Luca raised an eyebrow. "Yeah. I used to think honesty was this big dramatic gesture. A confession, a confrontation. But really it's just not lying, every day, in the small ways, especially when it's easier to say nothing." He leaned against the railing. "That's deep." I smiled a little bitterly. Took me a while to figure it out. He looked at me. "So what are you being honest about now?" I met his eyes. That I messed up, that I hurt both of you, that I wanted you for the wrong reasons, but that didn't mean my feelings were fake. Luca looked away, then back. "You were scared." I nodded. "And you're not anymore." I hesitated, still scared, just not hiding. He didn't say anything for a moment. Then Noah told me he's over it. My heart stuttered. He did. "Yeah," he said, "he forgives you." I blinked, unsure whether to believe it. Luca shrugged. "He's a better man than me." "Maybe," I said, "but I didn't come here for forgiveness." "Why did you come?" "To stop being the girl who disappears when things get real." We talked a little longer, about nothing, about everything. Then he nodded once, like that was the end of the scene. "I'm gonna head out," he said. "Okay." He paused. "You gonna stick around?" "Yeah, I think I need to." He gave me a half smile and walked back inside. I stayed on the balcony, alone under the string lights, and took the deepest breath I'd taken in weeks. I had no idea what came next. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for someone else to decide it for me. The night after Ryan's party, I couldn't sleep. It wasn't guilt this time, it was space, inside my chest. Like someone had cleared out the emotional clutter, and now all that was left was me, sitting in the middle of it, trying to decide what to build next. I didn't reach out to either of them. And for once, that felt right. A week passed. Then two. Then, out of nowhere, Noah texted. "Noah, lunch." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I typed, "Are you sure?" He replied, "It's lunch, not a wedding proposal." I laughed out loud. We met at a quiet little cafe I hadn't been to before. He was already sitting at a table by the window, flipping through a notebook filled with sketches. He looked up and smiled. It wasn't the warm, wide-open smile from before, but it wasn't closed either. "I wasn't sure you'd actually come," he said. "I wasn't sure either," I replied. We ordered, ate, talked about boring things, his new project, a book I was reading, the overpriced sandwich. But underneath it all was a quiet kind of truce, unspoken but present. After we finished, he sat back, looked at me and said, "You know what confused me the most?" "What?" "You weren't cruel, you were kind, but the way you handled everything made me feel like I didn't matter at all." The words hit like a clean punch. "I'm sorry," I said, without flinching. I was afraid to be seen as the villain, so I acted like nothing was happening, but that hurt you more. He nodded. "And Luca?" he asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. He was a moment I didn't expect, a version of me I didn't recognize. Noah smiled slightly. He said the same thing. I raised an eyebrow. "He talked to you about me?" "We're brothers, we talk about everything, especially disasters." I winced. I deserved that. He shrugged. "Maybe, but we've both been disasters at one point." We parted with no promises, no hard feelings, just the quiet knowledge that we'd survived something strange and it didn't define us anymore. I walked away lighter. But I also knew it wasn't over, not entirely. Because I still thought about Luca. A lot. So I did what I'd promised myself I would. I didn't wait around. I texted him, "Me, wanna meet for a drink." A minute later, "Luca, you're really into bars and awkward conversations, huh?" "Me, it's a gift." "Luca, same place as last time." "Me, I'll be there." It was different this time. We didn't start with small talk. I sat down and said, "I don't want to apologize again. I want to ask if you still feel something." He didn't answer right away. Then, "I do." I exhaled. "But I don't trust you yet," he added. "I don't blame you. I don't know if I ever will. I don't expect you to." He stared at me for a long time. Then he said something I didn't expect. "You know what bothered me most? That you lied to yourself more than to either of us." I nodded. I did. "Why?" "Because admitting I wanted something meant risking getting hurt again. I thought if I kept saying I wasn't ready, I wouldn't have to lose anything. And instead," he said, "you lost both of us." I swallowed hard. "Maybe," I said, "but I'm here now." He looked at me. And for a moment, the tension melted. Just a little. We didn't kiss that night. We didn't even touch. But when he walked me to my car, he said, "I'm not saying yes, but I'm not saying no either." And that somehow was enough. 2 days later, Luca sent me a video. It was a clip from the wedding. Someone had recorded the dance floor during one of the slower songs. The lighting was soft, the music crackly in the background. In the middle of the frame, me and him, dancing. I was laughing. He was spinning me around like we were the only two people in the world. Then the camera panned, unintentionally, to Noah off to the side, watching. I didn't realize it then, but in that moment, Noah had seen it all. "Luca, guess we were never that subtle." I didn't know how to respond. The video was beautiful and terrible. Because it reminded me of everything I had ruined in a single night, without even meaning to. That week blurred by. I buried myself in work, in meal prep, in long walks around the block where I could just breathe without bumping into memories. I didn't hear from either of them for a few days. But the ache stayed. Like a bruise I kept pressing. Then Saturday night, Luca texted again. "Luca, you free tonight?" "Me, yeah, why?" "Luca, I'm at Noah's, you should come." My fingers froze. Was this a trap? Me, why would I do that? Luca, because we're all tired of pretending like this didn't happen. I almost didn't go. But I did. When I knocked on the door, Noah answered. He looked me up and down, neutral face, no clues. "Hey," I said softly. "Come in," he replied. Inside, Luca was sitting on the couch, legs stretched out, drink in hand. "This feels like an intervention," I muttered, trying to smile. "In a way," Noah said, shutting the door, "it kind of is." I sat down across from them, like I was about to be cross-examined. Luca leaned forward. We've been talking, about you, about us. I folded my hands. Okay. Noah looked me dead in the eye. We're not mad anymore, not really, but we want to understand why. I took a breath. I didn't plan it. I didn't come to the wedding looking to hook up with anyone, let alone with someone connected to Noah. Luca raised an eyebrow. You still didn't answer the question. Which is, why did you run from something honest, and then dive headfirst into something impulsive? I looked between them, two men who, in wildly different ways, had cracked me open. Because I was afraid, I said. Noah nodded slightly, like he already knew that. I've always built safety nets before letting go. I thought Noah was the safety net, and that if I told him I wasn't ready, I could keep him close without committing. With you, I turned to Luca, there was no time to lie. It was chaos. And I guess, I wanted to feel something that didn't require me to explain myself first. That's the thing, Luca said. You always explain yourself after. The room was quiet for a moment. I'm not here to make excuses, I said. I just wanted to tell the truth. Finally, even if it doesn't change anything. Luca exchanged a glance with Noah. Then Noah stood up. I'm going to bed, he said. I've said my piece. You two do whatever it is you need to do. He walked out of the room. We both watched him disappear down the hall. Then Luca turned to me. So, he said, what do you want from me now? I didn't flinch. Not forgiveness, not even a relationship, just a chance to rewrite the ending. Luca didn't answer right away. He looked at me like he was trying to decide if I was real, or just another version of the woman he thought he already understood. A new ending, he said finally, his voice quieter. You think that's something you can just choose? I met his gaze. No, but I think we can try to write it together, even if it's messy, even if it's short. He leaned back on the couch, staring at the ceiling like the answers might be hidden in the texture. You know, he said, after that night I kept telling myself I didn't care, that it was just sex, that I barely knew you, but it wasn't true. I swallowed. Something about you, he continued, felt like someone I'd already met, like I'd been waiting to finish a sentence someone else started. That's how it felt for me too, I said. That's what scared me. He looked at me, eyes sharp. You're not scared now. I am, I admitted. But I'm more afraid of going back to the version of me who keeps people at arm's length, because it's easier than being honest. Luca stood up and paced to the window. Do you still talk to your ex? He asked suddenly. No, I said, that chapter is closed, finally. And Noah? We're okay, not close, not anything really, but I think we both needed that. He nodded slowly. So now what? I don't know, I said. Maybe we see where this goes, no expectations, just honesty. He laughed softly, more out of disbelief than humor. And what if it blows up again? Then at least we'll both see it coming this time. Luca walked over and sat beside me. Not too close. Not too far. And for a long moment, neither of us said a word. It wasn't a declaration, it wasn't forgiveness. But it was something. A start. The following weeks were strange. Tender. Uncertain. We didn't rush into anything. No labels, no promises, but we talked. We met up. We asked hard questions. One night, I told him about my parents' divorce and how I grew up believing love always ends with someone leaving. He didn't flinch. He told me about his last relationship, how she cheated, and how he still checks the location of every new bar he goes to just in case he sees her. It was messy, but it was honest. And then one night, months later, we were at a different wedding, this time not as strangers. I was wearing a pale blue dress. He was in a tailored charcoal suit. And this time, when we danced, it wasn't out of loneliness or lust. It was out of knowing. Knowing what we'd been through. Knowing who we were. Knowing we were still choosing to try. As the music swelled, Luca leaned in and whispered, "You still scared?" I smiled. Terrified. He grinned. Good, me too. And we kept dancing. Sometimes the most honest thing you can say is, I messed up. And sometimes, that honesty has to come after you've burned bridges, broken hearts, and lied to yourself more than to anyone else. For a long time, I thought emotional safety meant staying away from anything that might hurt me, saying no before I had the chance to feel yes, keeping people at a distance so they wouldn't see the mess behind the smile. But it turns out, real emotional safety isn't about avoiding pain, it's about knowing you'll survive it, about being seen in your worst moment and not flinching, about telling the truth even if your voice shakes, especially when your voice shakes. I used to think I had to be perfect to be loved. Then I slept with someone's brother and proved, definitively, that I was not. And yet, here I am. Still standing. Still soft. Still trying. Luca and I didn't fall into a movie-perfect romance after that. There were arguments, long pauses between texts, nights when I still caught myself scrolling through old photos, wondering how I got here. But there were also mornings when we made pancakes and danced barefoot in my kitchen. Quiet drives with no music because we didn't need anything but each other's presence. Conversations that felt like we were both peeling away layers we didn't know we had. I told him once, during one of those half-asleep, 2 a.m. moments, I wish I'd met you after I healed. He kissed my shoulder and said, then I wouldn't have met you at all. And that's the thing. Healing doesn't always come before love. Sometimes, love is the light you crawl toward while you're still bleeding. Sometimes, it's the mirror that shows you the parts of yourself you're finally ready to face. So no, I wasn't ready to date when I told Noah that. But I was ready to change. And maybe that's the bigger promise. Not that we'll always know what we want or get everything right the first time. But that we'll keep choosing to show up, messy, honest, scared, and stay. Even when it would be easier to run. Especially then. And that's the ending I never thought I'd write. Subscribe to my Mia's Stories YouTube channel for raw, emotional stories and authentic insights that encourage healing, growth, and understanding. Don't forget to be part of a supportive space where stories inspire and lessons resonate. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. Your opinion truly matters to us, and we're here for you.